Preface. Let's be real. I'm Indian, not an American. So why does the story of Zohran Mamdani, a socialist state legislator in New York, hit me so hard? Why am I glued to his battles over evictions and healthcare in Queens? Like the people in the global south, we live beneath the weight of American imperialism and the threat of its military machine. I've seen its industrial military machine crushing countries like Vietnam, Iraq, Iran, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, etc. Its bombs and bullets aren't abstract. They're real, they're deadly, and they shape our lives, subjugate us, and crush our resistance against our oppressors in our countries that are aligned with Western imperialism. But here's the thing I realized. America's foreign policy and its domestic policy are two sides of the same coin. The same system that bombs abroad bleeds its own people dry at home. It kills overseas with drones. It kills its own citizens with big pharma profiteering, brutal income inequality, poverty wages, and crumbling public services. This mini-book serves as a statement of solidarity with American workers and non-European immigrants who have contributed to building America through their hard work. That's why I started thinking, how does this empire treat its own people? What forces inside America are fighting back against our common enemy? That's where figures like Mamdani grabbed my attention. He's part of a new generation, the Squad, democratic socialists, grassroots organizers, rejecting the old, corporate-friendly politics of the Democratic Party. I understand that the fight for universal healthcare or tenant rights in Astoria is directly linked to challenging the war machine in Gaza and elsewhere. The roots of resistance, Vietnam to Gaza. This isn't new. Remember the Vietnam War? It shattered illusions for millions of Americans. It exposed liberal foreign policy as a mask for corporate imperialism, securing resources and markets, not freedom. This betrayal ignited the new left, students, anti-war activists, and feminists. They saw clearly that the US establishment, even the progressive wing, was complicit, propping up racism at home while funding dictators and wars abroad for profit. Israel, not the puppeteer, but the mirror. This brings me to Israel. A common myth suggests that Israel controls US policy, but this misses the point entirely. Israel is not America's master, rather, it reflects America. The situation in Gaza has shattered this reflection to the extent that corporate America can no longer face it. The US doesn't serve Israel, it invests in it, heavily. Just like it invests in military bases spanning the globe. Israel isn't some rogue outpost acting alone, it's the prototype of America. Israel is a militarized ethno-state, forged in the fires of colonial logic, the displacement and subjugation of an indigenous population. Permanent war sustains it. Its existence, its economy, and its political identity are bound to endless conflict and the occupation of Palestinian land and the subjugation of Arab nations. It is justified by divine exceptionalism and backed fervently by Christian Zionism in the US, a belief that Jewish control of Israel fulfills biblical prophecy, often with apocalyptic undertones, and by Israel's claims of unique historical right over the land of Palestine. The genocide, massacres, and wars are not new for the Eurocentric Western world. It has been doing it for centuries. Gaza genocide isn't a deviation from Western values. It embodies what the American empire secretly admires and openly enables. Israel is not just a small, embattled nation in a volatile region, but a reflection of the West's deepest impulses, contradictions, and aspirations. It is not a rogue player, but a model of a militarized, ethno-nationalist state that resonates with powerful currents in American society. Israel is a settler colony that has never confronted the violence of its founding. It functions as an expansionist war machine, perpetuating a frontier myth that remains open, always seeking new conquests. Its narrative of civilization is supported by the siege and slaughter of civilians Palestinians trapped in Gaza and the West Bank. What American empire fears? A crack in the mirror. When Israel slaughters, it's not a betrayal of Western values. It's Western values stripped bare, raw, brutal, and stripped of the PR. This is why the relentless violence in Gaza isn't just a tragedy. It's forcing a global reckoning with this model. And when Israel's actions, its apartheid system, its indiscriminate bombing, face unprecedented global condemnation and resistance, the American empire is terrified. The US empire doesn't just fear for its ally, It fears for its own future as the only global hegemon. It sees the potential collapse of its prototype, Israel. It considers the model of militarized ethno-nationalism, propped up by endless war and divine justification, starting to fracture, and if that model fails, it shakes the very foundation of the imperial project itself. It exposes the lie that military domination is sustainable or righteous. The fusion of religion and nationalism in the US is a dangerous mix of self-righteousness and fascist tendencies. In Israel, policies prioritize Jewish settlers over native Palestinians, while in the US, Christian Zionism fuels a blank check approach to Israel's actions, as questioning them becomes tantamount to questioning God's plan. This can drown out dissent or moral reflection. In the US, Christian Zionism is part of a larger ideological shift, flirting with fascist tendencies which thrive on hyper-nationalism, a cult of strength, scapegoating of outsiders, and a rejection of complexity in favor of simple us versus them narratives. The US invests in Israel with ideological kinship, viewing its militarized ethno-state model as a symbol of strength over weakness and order over chaos. The rise of Zionism in Israel and Christian Zionism in the US is a symptom of a broader Western crisis with economic inequality, political polarization, and declining faith in institutions. Israel's model becomes a fantasy for those fearing the West losing its grip. When Israel stumbles, it shakes the confidence of those who see it as a blueprint for America's imperial ambitions. The US needs to reflect on its own imperial ambitions and the future it wants, questioning whether a world of walled-off states, perpetual wars, and unapologetic supremacy is the future we want. Gaza serves as a crucial litmus test for progressives, challenging their commitment to justice and human rights. It highlights the stark reality that prominent figures, including Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris, have notably faltered in their responsibilities. This situation puts their actions and decisions under scrutiny, revealing the complexities and moral dilemmas faced by leaders in times of crisis. Why Mamdani matters beyond Queens. Mamdani has passed this test. This is why the fight of Zohran Mamdani and the New American Left resonates far beyond US borders. They are fighting the same beast at its source. American imperialism is our common enemy. When Mamdani battles corporate landlords and fights for housing as a human right, he challenges the logic of extraction and displacement that fuels empire and Zionism. When he demands police accountability and funds for communities, not cops, he rejects the militarization that defines both US domestic policing and its foreign policy. When he and allies like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar defy AIPAC and condemn the slaughter in Gaza, they strike at the heart of the military-industrial complex and the Christian Zionist ideology that sustains it. Their resistance inside the belly of the beast isn't just about US policy. It's about dismantling the blueprint of militarized ethno-nationalism before its fascist tendencies consume America itself and continue to ravage the global South. They fight not just for Queens, but for a different future, one where resources go to life, not death, everywhere. That's why I'm watching. That's why it matters for me. Let's cut to the chase. Am I a socialist? Honestly, I reject the label, not because I love capitalism, but because I reject all systems built on domination and hierarchy. And do I have faith in capitalist democracy? None. Zero. Here's why, and what I see on the horizon. Against all nationalism, dignity over flags. First, understand this. I am against all nationalism. Palestinian, Israeli, American, Indian, you name it. The Palestinian struggle, for me, it's not about creating another ethno-nationalist state. It's a raw, human fight for dignity, justice, and survival against a brutal system of apartheid and dispossession. Flags terrify me. Yes, they're just cloves, but that cloth is always wrapped around a stick. Look where flags fly, on tanks crushing neighborhoods in Gaza, on warplanes bombing hospitals in Yemen, on borders designed to exclude and dehumanize. Every flag represents a claim of superiority, a border drawn in blood, a permission slip for violence. I will never hold one. Why socialism isn't my answer. It's not radical enough. So, am I turning to democratic socialism, like Zohran Mamdani or Bernie Sanders? I respect their fight against inequality within the system, but I see it as a necessary band-aid, not the cure. I dream of something flatter, a society without money, without exchange relations, without the inherent violence of buying and selling life's necessities. A true community based on love, empathy, mutual cooperation, collective solutions to common necessity. I dream of something flatter, a society without money, without exchange relations, without the inherent violence of buying and selling life's necessities. A true community based on love, empathy, mutual cooperation, collective solutions to common necessities, and shared abundance. But here's the hard truth. Such a revolution can't be voted in. The powerful, the billionaires, the arms dealers, the architects of American fascism and Zionist apartheid won't surrender their privilege through polite elections. History screams this at us. This demands a global revolution, not isolated uprisings, but a coordinated rupture against capitalism, imperialism, and the nation-states everywhere. And crucially, it must be led by women. Why? Because women bear the brunt of this system's violence, economic, physical, and ecological. They understand survival, community, and the cost of hierarchy in their bones. They are the natural architects of a truly flat and humane society. The death rattle of American democracy. What about democracy as we know it? At its best, it's a power-sharing agreement between elites, classes, and identity groups. It offers some checks on absolute power, some separation of powers. But look at America now. Rampant inequality. A corporate oligarchy buys politicians, from both parties, and writes laws. Rising fascism, Christian Zionism, using theology to justify Israeli apartheid and US militarism, fuels a homegrown white nationalist movement that rejects pluralism. Systemic breakdown, gerrymandering, voter suppression, a captured Supreme Court, the guardrails are splintering. Here's my bleak analysis. I see no viable future for genuine democracy, socialist or otherwise, in the current United States. The divisions are too deep, the corruption too total, the momentum of fascism too strong. The only path I see, division of America as we know it, a fracturing along the lines that this empire created. A white homeland, dominated by descendants of European settlers, fueled by Christian nationalism, Zionist ideology, and a desperate, violent clinging to supremacy. Likely embracing open fascism. A new nation, forged by the descendants of the enslaved indigenous survivors and generations of non-European immigrants. A space forced to build something radically different from the ground up, free from the original sins of settler colonialism and white supremacy. It will be pluralistic, multicultural, and composite. Why does this matter now? This isn't just doom-mongering, it's about seeing clearly. Figures like Zohran Mamdani represent the last, best hope within the dying system, fighting for tenant rights, healthcare, and peace in Gaza against impossible odds. Their work is vital resistance. But we must also look beyond the system Mamdani operates within. We must build networks of mutual aid, community defense, and solidarity that can survive collapse and seed the flat society I dream of. Understanding Christian Zionism and its alliance with fascism isn't academic, it's seeing the ideology actively shaping our catastrophic present and driving towards an ethno-state future. I don't claim to have the blueprint. The path is dark. But clinging to the myths of capitalist democracy or tinkering at socialism's edges feels like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The iceberg, centuries of racial capitalism, imperialism, and ecological plunder, has already struck. The question isn't if the ship goes down, but what lifeboats we build together and who we refuse to leave behind. That's where my hope, however fragile, lies.